Hey everybody, in today's video I'm going to show you how you can make random selections in Excel, but by also applying weighted probabilities to your selections. So for example, if I use Excel's ran_between function and said pick a number between 1 and 5, it's going to assign an equal probability each one of those selections. But let's say in my example here, I've got groups 1 through 5. I want group 1 to be selected more often than group 2, or I want group 5 to have the highest probability of being selected of all the options. I can set this up so that I have weights to reflect that. So I'm going to add a field here for my weights. Initially, I'm just going to set everything to a value of 10. So everything has an equal chance of being selected. So this would be no different right now than using the random ran_between function. But I'm going to adjust that and show you how this works. So I'm going to create another field for the cumulative value. And so I'm going to start from 1 because what this column is going to do is basically create my range. So I'm going to use the sum function because I want to grab the cumulative values. So in this case, initially I'm just starting from B2 to B2, just one cell, but I'm going to copy this formula down. So I'm freezing that first value because I'm going to drag this formula down. And then I'm going to add +1 and then copy this down. And I need to extend it one more row down for group 5. So basically how this works is if my random number falls between a range of 1 to 10, it's going to go to group 1. If it's 11 to 20, it'll be group 2. If it's 21 to 30, it'll be group 3. If it's 31 to 40, it'll be group 4. And then everything else will fall into group 5. And so we can check this, that each range has the correct range in it by taking that value and subtracting the starting one. And so we can see each bucket has 10 numbers in it. So just to check to make sure that our range is the correct size. So now we've got our minimum value, we've got our maximum value. So I'm going to set those up here. So a min and a max range. So it's going to be that one, and this one's going to be 51. So this is where it doesn't really matter if we add more selections to this. We just basically have to adjust our formula to make sure that we've got that min and max selected. So now let's create a few other fields here. One for just a purely random selection. And now we've got a weighted selection. And let's have our weighted number. So I'm going to show you how this is going to work. So if I were just to select a random number here, what I could do is use Excel's index function to say, okay, I want to select a value from this range. And for the row number, I want to use the ran_between function to select between 1 and 5. So it's going to select one of those numbers, and that's going to correspond to one of these rows. So group 1's in the first row, group 2's in the second row, group 3 in the third, and so on. And the column number is 1 because I only have one column in this range anyways. And so if I close this, and before I copy this down, I want to freeze my range, and I'll copy down. So as you can see, purely random selections. This is just the normal ran_between function. Now I'm going to use the ran_between function again, but this time I'm going to use it on my min and my max values. Let's freeze those as well. And I'm going to copy those down. And anytime you hit delete, anytime you trigger a calculation, the random numbers will automatically regenerate. So now I'm going to create another formula using the index function. And again, the same range. And this time what I'm going to do is use the match function. So I'm going to look up this value next to me, so this weighted number. And I'm going to search within the range, this cumulative range, only extending up to 1 to 41. And for the match type, I'm going to use less than. So as you can see, it's going to find the largest value that is less than or equal to the lookup value. Okay. And so this will ensure that even if I get a number more than 41, it's going to go to group 5. So, and by making sure my random numbers don't go beyond 51, I'm not skewing my numbers to give group 5 more of a probability of being selected. So column number again is going to be 1, so I'm going to close this out. So same methodology. Just want to freeze this range again and freeze this one as well because my selections are coming from here. and I'm searching for my value in that cumulative column. I'll close this out, and now I've got group 5. So right now, there should be no discrepancy. Well, obviously the random numbers are going to be different, but no discrepancy in the methodology, because whether they're all assigned equal weights in the rand between function, I've got that weighting all equal as well. But now let's really mess around with this. So let's look at group 2. Let's say I want group 2 to be heavily skewed. I want most of my selections in group 2. So I'm going to change this value to 500. So I want it to be much more likely to be selected, a group 2 to be selected than the other groups. And now when we see that, we see, look, group 2, all of my selections come from group 2. And why is that? So we can see that now my range has 500 items in there. So anything between a range of 11 to 510. Once it hits 511, then it goes to group 3. But everything falls between a range of 11 and 510, right? Nothing goes above 510. So you can see the effect of that, because what we're doing here is we're doing a random number between 1 and 541. But if the range 11 to 510 is going to be all group 2, obviously the vast majority of those numbers are going to be belonging to group 2. Now, if I trigger another calculation, could be different, but we still have a lot. So we got group 1 to sneak in here because it had a value of 7. But other than that, you can see how we can adjust this to skew this a lot more. Now, let's say we want group 1 and group 2 to be highly likely to be selected. Let's assign this one a weight of 500 as well. Again, it doesn't have to add up to 100%. We just say, okay, we want these ones to be selected. So group 1 and group 2, again, most likely selected. Group 3 made it in here at 1006 because group 3 falls within a range of 1001 to 1010. So again, there's always going to be the probability that you're going to have these outliers that dip into these other groups. But depending on how heavily you assign these weights, like right now, I've assigned some pretty significant weightings. I mean, group 1 and group 2 are 50 times more likely to be selected than these other ones. Now, if I adjust it down to, let's say, 50 and 50, then we'll see a much different picture. Now, in this case, it's still 1 and 2 is still more likely to be selected, but it's not as heavily skewed towards them. So let's randomize a bit more. So group 1 and 2 still show up, but now we've got group 4, we've got group 5 as well. So group 5 hit that max of 131. And so you can see it's still skewing towards 1 and 2, but there's more of a probability of other groups being selected. Now, in this case, we're only selecting 5 items, so there's a lot more potential for noise and abnormalities. If you extend this out to a larger sample size of, let's say, 100 selections or 200 selections, whatever the case may be, then you'll see more of that normalization and you'll see more of that effect of that weighting play out. So let's do a couple more times here. So 1 and 2, again, majority are going to be in those buckets. Group 4 still sneaks in. We're still, after all, generating random numbers, but you can see 1 and 2 more likely to be selected. Whereas here, we've got more of an even mix. We've got an actual, well, it is an even mix. But here, we've got 1 and 2 showing up more likely than the other selections. So that's how we can create random selections in Excel, but add a weighting to them. So that way, if we want certain numbers to be selected more often than others, we have the control to do that. The key is to build up this cumulative range so that we can say, okay, we're selecting random numbers, but if they fall within this range, they go to this bucket. If they fall within this range, they go here, and so on and so forth. The key is starting from 1 and making sure we're building up those selections, building up those ranges properly. So you can use this extra column here just to make sure that your range is exactly the size that you want it to be, to make sure that there's the correct probability of that selection. And then using a min and a max to sort of constrain your weightings. And that way you don't have to worry about if it adds up to 100% or not, because then it's still selecting a random number, but within that range, it's going to determine which group it belongs to. So that's a wrap for this video. If you did like it, please make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more. Thanks for watching.